Hi everyone, welcome to THT, and today we're going to talk about week 5 of Planetary Qualifiers. So on this weekend we didn't have as many Planetary Qualifiers as usual, so I'm like I did last week, I'm just gonna go over the list that I think are the most interesting to look at, and we do a wrap up of the overall evolution of the meta throughout this PQ season. So first we start with PQ Barcelona, 55 players. Without much of a surprise, the attendance on Planetary Qualifiers seems to be going down, especially in Europe. I think that's the result of just players maybe starting to be a little bit wary of the meta, and maybe just people have already took part in Planetary Qualifiers, maybe don't have time to do multiples. And in this top 8, a pretty diverse meta, as you can see. 3 Django's though, 1 Django Blue though, has been. I think we've been seeing some Django Blue having some success as a control archetype, and then the rest is just Quinlan Red, Palpatine, and Han Blue, which once again has done well. I mean, Han is currently playable on all 4 colors. And then yeah, pretty diverse meta here. In PQ, Vigo was only 25 players, and in this case, we got a Thrawn Blue, making a second position, which is pretty cool. I would be very interested to know if this was a control version of Thrawn or if it was more of a mid-range version, similar to the one I've posted on this channel. And we also saw Palpatine Green making a top 8. So if you ever know who is this player or has the deck list, I'll be interested to look at it. Then we got PQ Preston, which was the top 8 was dominated by Sabine with 4 Sabine Green and no Han whatsoever in this top 8. And an Iden Blue winning the whole tournament, which is very cool, very interesting. So we're getting into Iden Blue a little bit more on another deck list that we'll dive into more details about and explain kind of the ins and outs of this deck. Then we got PQ Provence, where once again, as it's the custom in France, Han Yellow doing pretty well in France in general, very popular. But the rest is pretty much what you would expect. Some Sabine, some Django winning the tournament. Palpatine Blue still managed to sneak through the cracks. Still, in my opinion, the strongest deck to fight non-aggro deck, generally speaking. So if you can avoid playing as aggro, then it's also, I would say, Palpatine players have been trying to kind of like really they have a lot of tools to fight against Han. So if you can stuff your stuff against Han, and suddenly the only bad matchup you have is Sabine and Django, which are pretty big weaknesses to have in my opinion. But if you can kind of avoid those matchups, you can do well in tournament. This one was 98 players, so relatively big tournament compared to the other ones. Then we got PQ Beckley, 62 players, with Akira Green taking the whole tournament. And in this case, we got not 1, but 2 Han Green, making some good results here. And then some Django, some Sabine, pretty classic overall meta. Then we got PQ Lansing, 81 players. And this time around, we got a Quinlan ECL making the win, and it's the only list that we have access to. The rest of the field is pretty much what you would expect, with a Han Blue once again doing some results. 2 Boss Green, and also an Anakin Blue, which... So just want to take a closer look at the Quinlan ECL build, which is a build that is very focused on the Jedi. So the Huang here, that is a good combination with the Gamer Guard, that we know that the good Huang Gamer Guard's synergies here, which is very nice. The rest is just some good stuff. Green, white, yellow combination with a lot of bodies that can be boosted with Ultra DF44 blasters. It also plays 2 copies of Shoot First, which is definitely a card that I think is definitely underplayed. It's a card that can be really strong and take people by surprise. It's just the reason why people don't play it nowadays is because there's only a few slots that you have dedicated to buff spells, and hotshot blasters and surprise strike are usually, generally speaking, the better buffs, And the problem is like there's so many buffs you can put in a deck, but sometimes taking trying to go for a different approach and sneaking it and mixing it up with some shoot first can really have very high benefit. It can really take people by surprise. We also have Clear the Field, which is probably helpful against Han Yellow. Generally speaking, there's a lot of 3 cost or less unit that you want to bounce in this matchup. Also, the spell the targets. And the rest of the build is pretty much trying to put the pressure. As you can see, it's not a very late game build. You don't play U-Wing Reinforcement, at least you don't play it in the main deck, you play it in the sideboard. And you try to leverage ECL. Actually, the only great ECL targets out of this specific build is going to be Hela Sakura. So there might be some... It's actually okay on Wind Thunder Beastkeeper as well, but I'm afraid that this would be a situation where you would just simply be stuck with ECL, not really doing much. And then we got the General's Blade, which has been the main attraction of the Quinlan Grind is like it gives you access to the relatively early game Jedi leader that you can put the General's Blade on and then ramp into some higher things. You don't even need to ramp, you can just like swarm the board. This is more of a swarm build, as you can see. So the sideboard here is interesting. There's 3 copies of R2D2 in the sideboard. I'll be interested to know what is the matchup in which you would want to have 3 copies of R2D2. I'm sure there's a specific reason for this to be there. The Scanning Officer, only 1 in the sideboard, that's not a lot. As you can see, people are not really hating so much on Han as much as they could. And then some more lead game with U-Wing Reinforcements and Han Solo. So that's it for this Quinlan Green list. It's a pretty cool list, so happy to see it making some results. I think the only thing I'm worried about for this specific build is it's pretty weak to control. As you can see, it's against control. I cannot see this deck winning any games at all. I think this deck seems this deck seems to be completely ignoring the control matchup, which is fine because control is not that popular at the moment. So if you're in a meta where control is not very popular, then especially in the US, we know historically speaking, control has not been very popular. You can play this Quinlan ECL and get away with it. For example, playing the same deck in the UK would not work, I think, because there's just too many people playing control. And as you can see here in the rest of the top 8, there's no control whatsoever. I mean, this Palpatine Yellow is just not a real control. It's more like a late game value deck. Then we got PQ Clifton, where we got a Kira ECL. Very diverse meta here. A bit of everything. But very, very meta, as you can see. It's very much what you would expect overall. 51 players. And we got PQ Mobile 59 players. And this time we got, once again, Bosk Green. Bosk Green has really been doing quite well here. We're seeing Bosk Green in almost every single top 8. So it's nice to see this deck doing well. I think it has a deck that does pretty decently against Han Yellow, and that's a good reason to pick the deck. And then we see a Revenant from the Dead here, Han 2 ECL, making a return. And the reason why Han 2 has been completely neglected this set is because we are in a meta where 2 of the most popular, out of the 4 most popular deck in the game, the most highly played decks, 2 of them are playing Tarkin Town. And as we know, Tarkin Town counters Han 2 pretty heavily. And this is the reason why Han 2 has been pretty unpopular in this meta, even though it is undeniably one of the strongest leaders in the game. And we saw that during set 2, and I don't think that has changed. I still think it's one of the best in the game, but it's just that Tarkin Town is such an extreme counter to it, and it's so popular at the moment. But obviously, it's nice to see this deck doing well. We're just going to take a look at the list. As you can expect, this is pretty much the Swarm Han ECL list aggro that was popularized by the Soup Racers in set 2. And this list, as you can see, has not really changed much with set 4. I think set 3, sorry. The only novelty here is 3 copies of Heavy, which is a very interesting card. It's a card that if you do have Coordinate, which presumably is quite easy to turn on with this deck, you can actually ECL it, and it will have 4 plus 2 raid 2, and then if it dies, it will deal 1 damage to all ground units, which means that it can possibly deal something that has 7 health Ambush. And I think this is the only card in the game that can ambush as a 7 attack units for 4 resources. You have plenty of ways to do it at 5 with Poe and also with Steadfast Battalion, but Heavy can do it at 4, which is kind of interesting. It's a card that is not bad to play for 3 as a 4-2, raid 2 that can be also quite strong. So it's a nice card in this deck, and it's nice to see it. We also has the Patrol Wing, which is another interesting card to be played as a 4-4 in space. For 4 can be nice. If you have, like, the fact that you have the possibility to play it on curve 4 or curve 5, giving a little more flexibility, because this card you need to have initiative to actually get the bonus. The only problem I have with this is that this deck is unlikely to have initiative, as it's really swarming the board with a lot of cards. Loads of great cards to play with ECL, Poe, Wrecker, obviously, but then so that's why you play the Timely Intervention here as a complement. And the sideboard is clearly here to shift the deck a bit more late game if it needs to, and the Scanning Officers for the hand matchup. Awesome list. We got a Sabine Yellow making result and a Chronic Green as well at the bottom, 59 players. And then we got PQ Augusta, 45 players. And in this one, we have not 1, but 2 Bosque Blue. So it looks like Control is a bit more popular in this area of the United States. And then the rest is pretty much what you would expect here, pretty meta, top 8 overall. PQ Kansas City, we see a Ray making results, and also a Yoda Red, which is always nice to see. That's where Yoda Red, I think, has been a pretty solid deck. I think it's just suffering from being a little bit slow, but I think it's I think Yoda Red Yoda Blue was very popular at the beginning of the set, but I think Yoda Red has made. I'm gonna double check that information. Let me double check that. But it seems like Yoda Red has 1 win, one PQ win, and in terms of meta percentage, 3 top 8 overall of Yoda Red. Yoda Red has been overall more successful than Yoda Blue as an archetype, which was my initial instinct, is that as much as I like Yoda Blue, I think Yoda Red is just offers a little bit more, in my opinion. Is it better than Anakin? It's hard to know, because Anakin sees a lot more play than Yoda. But Yoda is definitely a strong leader. Yoda Red is a strong archetype, in my opinion. Moving on to PQ Denver, we got 96 players, a bigger one. Palpatine Yellow taking the win, and once again, Han Green being very popular in the US at the moment, and doing well. And we see Han doing well here. PQ Memphis, 66 players, very meta top 8. There's not much to say about it, very meta. PQ Columbus, 54 players, also very meta, as with the exception. So here we got a Quinlan Red without Tarkintown, which is always, so you can see there's a lot of off meta things here. For example, we see the Senatorial Corvette seeing a bit of play here, and we also saw the Gambit in the Crossfire, which is definitely can be a good card if you take people by surprise. And I wonder how often you get to use it and how effective that was. So definitely a lot of interesting decisions here. The fact that he's not playing Tarkintown is obviously the biggest change to the list, which is obviously shocking, because Quinlan's combination of pinging units combined with Tarkintown is one of the ways the deck gets ahead in the early stage of the game. But the 5 extra HP in such a very tempo aggro meta can be beneficial, and there's more and more people who are building their deck to play around Tarkintown. So maybe there's a benefit here in getting the extra 5 HP and kind of avoiding people who are playing so hard around Tarkintown. Another list that is obviously kind of shocking to see is this Vader Tarkintown deck, which I'm going to take a look right now. And this list is shocking in many ways. When you show me this list, it looks like a list of someone who's just a beginner in Star Wars Limited building. Honestly, and I don't mean this in an insulting way. I mean, obviously this guy did top 8, so he obviously know how to build out the deck. But that's just how I feel. Everything is just, it's either very slow or very underpowered. So I'm going to try to attempt explaining this list. So it is obviously a mid-range list that can be aggressive if it given the opportunity. Um, there's a lot of removal, but the removals are very damage based. So I can definitely see some matchup in which those will not do very well. For example, this guy has no way to deal with very large threats whatsoever, which is a problem because this deck does not have necessarily always the possibility to be super aggressive. Because as you can see, there's a lot of removal. Um, Obviously, there's also a way to trigger Talking Down early stage of the game. The Vader Talking Down is a pretty decent combination, as you can go turn 1 drop, then use Vaders to ping something, and then Talking Down it out. So that's a pretty strong early game. No ramp means that no ramps and Vader deploys on 7 is very, very difficult, especially when you're going to be playing against aggro. So really, this deck really relies on cheap removals and Tarkin Town to control the early stage of the game. And I don't think that's really a strategy that's going to be enough most of the time. There's some strong things going on with Fifth Brothers, Fallen Lightsaber, if you can make it happen without getting waylaid, that's obviously pretty strong, but how often can you do this is kind of the big question, right? You got a lot of fourth payoff with the force lining and the force throws, but the force enablers are not very strong. Fifth Brother is not really considered a very strong card. Neither is Seventh Sister, which is another card which is okay in a Grand Inquisitor deck, but it's not really good outside of that. So all those cards are very, very slow and very easy to interact with for the opponent. Obviously, if they're not dealt with and you manage to put a Fallen Lightsabers on them, then they can get out of control. But that's how often can you do this? It's kind of another very weird card here is the General Veers. I mean, everything is Imperial in this deck, I guess. But it's such another slow, very slow card that the opponent can very easily interact with. It's a kind of card that was doing well when the Star Wars Limited, we didn't even have all the cards and people were kind of playing with it. Like General Veers into Cellblock Guard Treasury was kind of like the combination that we used to see play back then. But those are ultimately vastly very weak mechanics in regards to how the game has evolved moving forward. So yeah, I don't really know how this deck can manage to do a top 8. I mean, obviously it is a very small tournament, so you can't really draw much conclusion for this. If you want to give this deck a try and let me know what you think about it. In the sideboard is also the Order 66, the anti-Jedi thing. Most of the strong Jedis in the game at the moment have 7 HP, so this card is not doing so well in the current meta. I think this card has the potential for the future, but I really don't know how. I mean, I guess you can combine this with Darth Vader to give something that has 7 HP, I guess. But yeah, 4 resources removal that you have to combine another ability to actually do something is kind of an expensive endeavor. Okay, cool. Anyway, I have no idea how this list can make top 8, but that's sometime it happens. 52 players here in PQ Alicante. Sorry if I'm not pronouncing it right. Pretty standard top 8. We got a Boss Blue, got a Han Yellow, Han Green, Django, 2 Quinlan. And then PQ Foley, we got 3 Hans, Han Red, 2 Han Yellow, 2 Sabine Green. Yeah, very, very meta. And a Quinlan ECL once again taking a win here. Fairly small PQ of 41 players, but still nice to see. And we got this PQ Katana, we got cancelled. PQ Our Name in Netherlands. And this one 68 players, and the winner was an Iden Blue. I wanted to take a look at this list, because this time we have the list, and show you what this archetype is all about. So basically, Iden Blue is the other... So there's currently 3 hard control decks that are kind of playable at the moment. There's obviously the Bosk Blue, which is the most popular, and in my opinion, the most powerful, and the most generally powerful, because they all have their weaknesses and strength. There's the yellow hard control decks, which are either play Cad Bane or Django. They have a bit more units going on, and they are a bit more, and they have the possibility to they are really good into the hard control mirror because of the discard package and the bounty hunter crew package. And then there's finally the Iden Blue archetype. So Iden Blue, I think as a leader is definitely weaker than Bosk. Weaker stats as it actually comes out. Leader's ability less impactful, but she doesn't have to play all those bounty cards, which offers her more space to do other things. And obviously, the fact that you're playing double blue is very, very powerful. I think that if you had the option to play Bosk double blue, you might actually do it because double blue really offers a lot. First of all, Equalize, which is one of the best card against Django that you could ever play. This card is incredibly strong against Django. Vigilance with a discounted price is very nice. Bosk blue basically mostly plays on playing blue as a majority color anyways. So having to cut out the red is not really that big of a deal, and getting those discounts on those equals and vigilance is very nice. This gives you more space. You also can play Sugi, which can be a nice card as well against certain archetypes that plays a lot of upgrades. So you get a 4/6 Sentinels for 4 that you can also smuggle. The package Lompike Sugi is very nice against deck who have a lot of hand disruption. So you still have something to play from the smuggle, even though your discard got heavily. The rest of the deck is pretty much what you would expect from a hard control archetype. Not much to say about it. I just pretty much agree with everything. The Bounty Hunter crew is obviously very strong in the mirror match. And yeah, that's it. That's all we have in terms of deck list for the specific week end of top 8. Oh, sorry, of PQ. Let's take a look at how the meta has evolved. So as you can see, we were basically neighboring. So last time I did my video about should Han Yellow be nerfed or banned, and the answer to that question, I mean, I invite you to watch the video where I go into details. But the short answer is that it shouldn't be, and I think the meta involution is proving me right here. You see, Han in terms of PQ winner was neighboring the 30%, and was neighboring the 40%. Sorry, it was a 39 last time we checked, and here you can see it's going down to 34%, and it's going down on the winner on the Han Yellow. The percentage is going down as well. So I think that so that's definitely a trend that we are seeing, is that Han Yellow is not capable of maintaining his share. But in my opinion, the winners can be a little bit deceiving. I think the sample size is very small, so I think the top 8 is a better metric. And in terms of top 8, we are also seeing a trend downward here at 16% of the meta. I think it was more than that, and we're seeing also on the overall is basically maintaining, because we saw Han Yellow kind of dipping a little bit. Han Green though is going up, so that's kind of like canceling out. But we can see that the numbers are stabilizing; they're not increasing, and they're not. And once again, we are neighboring around the 20%. Remember that Boba, as it's during the last PQ season, was around the 40% mark, which is almost twice what this is. So it's clearly not on the same scale, not even close. So I think it's a pretty healthy meta. However, it is a pretty stale meta. There hasn't been any major meta evolution. There's, as you can see in terms of leaders and the space they're occupying, they're pretty much staying around the same market share, and they're not really moving so much. Some small archetypes obviously are going up and down, but that's because the sample size is so small that only a win can really make you jump up and down into the rankings. But basically, as you can see, this is really not, the meta is pretty stale at the moment in terms of what are the decks that are performing. So I think it's a great meta, and I don't think anything should be changed. But obviously, as set 4 comes around, we're going to be very happy to be able to see something else, because I don't expect to see any major evolution on this metagame before the end of the season. So take that into account as you are preparing for your next PQ. I will be playing the PQ in Northern Ireland, so if you are going to join in there, I will be super glad to meet all you guys. And I also will be casting the PQ in Zurich the week after. So that's going to be super exciting. So I hope you guys will tune in on the stream. I will be casting the tournament live in Zurich. So that's going to be super fun. At the moment, I'm still in the Philippines. So I'm sorry if I'm not answering your question as quickly as I used to, because usually when you guys are commenting on the videos, I'm usually asleep. Anyway, thank you so much for watching this video, and I'll see you next time. Drop a like if you enjoyed it, and I'll see you next time.